What's going on, everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at what I consider one of the best budget GPUs that you can pick up right now. And we've got a different variant here from a company known as Sparkle. I've actually never tested any of their GPUs, but I got my hands on their brand new Intel Arc A580 ORC Overclock Edition, and I really wanted to show you what this thing can do. Retail on this is around 170 USD, and if you keep an eye out, these Arc GPUs do go on sale quite a bit. But I do think that this is a great option if you're looking for an awesome 1080p Ultra PC or even a 1440p high PC, because the A580 does 1440p gaming quite well. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know I test out a lot of these Arc GPUs, and personally, I'm a big fan of them. Intel with their new Arc series is definitely new to the market when it comes to modern day gaming GPUs, and it's awesome to see competition come up against some of the big dogs that have been doing it for a while now. But the A580 is the newest kid on the block, and it looks like with this Sparkle Series A580, we are receiving 2 free games, Gotham Knights and Ghostbusters, so that's really nice to kind of add into everything there. And usually I have to send away or wait for an email for these. It does look like there's a code on the back of this card. But taking a look at this all-new Sparkle Arc A580, I actually kind of like the design here. We've got dual fans, nice blue coloring, and if we take a look at this, one thing that I'd love to see in the future is just a single PCIe 8-pin connector. But this will draw up to 180 watts. That's the TGP of the A580. So I'm not going to complain here, but they do recommend a 600 watt power supply or better with this card. Coming in at that $170 mark, it's nice to see that we do get a metal backplate here. And it's a very minimalistic design. It's not flashy at all. There is a little bit of RGB on the side, but it actually ties into the performance. We'll take a look at that in just a second. Over here, we've got 3 display ports and 1 HDMI port. Dual fan design, but again, this does require 2 8-pin PCIe connectors, so keep that in mind. There's definitely a few other higher-end Arc GPUs on the market, like the A750 and the A770, but with this A580, we have 24 Xe cores, 6 render slices, 24 ray tracing units, 384 Intel XMX engines, 384 Xe vector engines. Intel states that the base clock on the A580 is 1700 MHz, but while gaming, this stays at a true 2400 MHz, so that's the average clock across the board with this Sparkle version. We've got a TGP up to 185 watts, and it's designed around PCIe Express 4.0 x16. Now, these cards will work in a 3.0 slot, but I personally haven't tested them, and I'm not exactly sure how much performance we're going to lose going from 4.0 to 3.0. In order to test this card out, I'm going to be putting it inside of one of my newer rigs here. I'm kind of making this my official testing rig. Basically, what we've got here is the Intel Core i7-14700K, 32 gigabytes of DDR5 running at 6000 megahertz, 360mm Cooler Master AIO for that 14700K. I've also got an Aorus Z790 motherboard and an 850 watt Cooler Master power supply. So we've got plenty of power, and of course this is a bit overkill for the A580, but this way we don't have to worry about any other bottlenecks. We can see what this card can really do. And once it's all set up, it looks a little something like this. Now we've got that Sparkle logo on the side of the GPU itself. This will actually indicate different temperature ranges that we're in. So blue is going to be nice and chilly. It'll go to yellow, just letting you know it's heating up a bit. And if you ever reach thermal throttle, it will turn red. So not a lot of RGB, and this will be perfect for a clean, unlit build. I actually like the blue against the black there. I think the card actually looks pretty decent. Okay, so here we are. Like I mentioned, I did pair this up with a pretty powerful CPU because I didn't want any kind of bottleneck. We've got that i7-14700K, but this A580 is actually doing much better than I thought it would. Another thing to note here is we are in a PCIe X16 4.0 slot. Now, it will work with a 3.0 slot, and personally, I haven't done any testing to see the difference, so we are kind of right where we need to be with the A580. And since we're using Arc, we've got the Arc control panel, game section, so we can go through, add our games, we can set up custom profiles for these. Our display section, just give us some information there. And of course, we've got performance. Now, Intel does have a pretty nice little performance graph that you can overlay on your game. Really easy to use here. But the main thing is performance tuning. With this A580 and most other Arc cards that I've tested, I can only really overclock 100 megahertz here. I'm not going to do an overclock on the core or anything like that. What I'm going to do is change the power limit. So out of the box, this was set at 150 watts. We're going to go to 180, apply. That way we can reach those maximum clocks. We've also got some fan speed control here. Automatic does a pretty good job, but you can set up a fan curve or you could do a fixed fan target. It's really up to you. So I'm not doing any kind of core overclocking or over voltage to this card. We've just raised that power limit up. The next thing I wanted to take a look at were some benchmarks that I ran on this GPU. And the first one here is the Geekbench 6 OpenCL benchmark. We scored an 88,516. And if you take a look down the list on the right-hand side, you'll see that the performance here with this OpenCL benchmark is kind of right on par with the RTX 3060. And if you consider the price of both of these new, we're coming in around $100 cheaper with the A580. Next up, we've got 3D Mark Night Raid, 73,894, Firestrike, 27,698, and finally, we've got Time Spy with a 12,289. Our graphics score is right there at 11,509, so on paper with these synthetics, definitely looks like it's putting out some decent performance, but the only way to really tell is test out some real-world gaming. And first up, we've got Doom Eternal 1440p Ultra settings. We're not using any kind of resolution scale, so we are at a native 1440p here. I got an average of 106 FPS with this card. Looking pretty good here, and you know, there are a few more settings that we could take up. Go to Ultra Nightmare if you wanted to, but I think this looks amazing at 1440p Ultra. I also ran the built-in benchmark for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and with this I did have to take it down the high settings, not using any resolution scale, 1440p, and at the end we had an average of 83 FPS. Pretty nice, and if you want to go up to Ultra, you'll get an average of around 67, but you're right there on the edge. So that's why I took it down to high, but another thing we could do here is add some resolution scale, or even just take it to 1080p. Moving over to Mortal Kombat 1 in 1440p, high settings. I tried Ultra here and we had an average of around 57, so it was dipping down a bit at Ultra. But with this, we're not using XeSS, which is Intel's scaling technology. It does work out really well for these ARC GPUs, and you could go ahead and max this out at 1440p, taking XeSS to balance. I wanted to throw one of my favorite racing games in here just to see what it would do. It's an older one. We've got Project Cars 2. This is my favorite for the Rallycross. We got an average of 162 FPS, 1440p, very high. Here's Spider-Man Miles Morales, 1440p, very high. And with this, I didn't have to use XeSS. I actually thought that at 1440p with these settings here, I'd have to turn on a little bit of resolution scale, be it FSR or XeSS, but we got an average of 74 FPS with this one. If you're familiar with Forza Horizon 5, you know that this will basically run on anything as long as you adjust those settings accordingly. Even on lower end APUs, we're seeing some amazing performance. But with this setup here and that A580, we're at 1440p Ultra, no resolution scale, and I got an average of 86 FPS, which is more than enough in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, it's super smooth here with the A580. These ARC GPUs do very well with CSGO, but I've yet to test CSGO 2. Here we have it at 1440p, very high settings, and by the end of this, I had an average of 192 FPS. And the final game I wanted to test here was Cyberpunk 2077. We're at 1440p, high settings with XeSS set to quality. Of course, taking XeSS to performance will net us a bit more, or even taking the resolution down, but with it set up like this, we got an average of 65 FPS. Now what I want to do is actually go into the settings, and we're going to take XeSS from quality to balanced. So from here, we're just going to hit this up to balanced. Go ahead and apply it. And to tell you the truth, I didn't notice a giant jump in performance. Now, of course, going from quality to performance in XeSS might net us a bit more, but now we're getting an average of around 67 FPS, not too much more than we had at quality settings. So, if you need to get more out of this game, best bet with the A580 is just take that resolution down to 1080, and now we can average around 86 FPS with Cyberpunk 2077 1440p high with some XeSS turned on. So overall, I think this new Sparkle Arc A580 card is a great choice for a budget build. Now you got to know what to expect going into this. They don't consider this a 1440p card, but as you saw, there are a lot of games that we can do 1440p at. This is more of a 1080p ultra card, 1440p high card, and it does a great job for what we have, especially given the price point. But that's going to wrap it up for this first look video. I will have a full build coming up using the A580. I wanted to go with some cheaper used parts just to see where we could get a nice little PC for 1440p high gaming. I think we could come in pretty cheap when you compare it to other parts on the market right now. But until then, if you've got any questions, let me know down below. And if you're interested in learning about the Sparkle Arc A580, I'll leave some links to where you can buy it down below. But that's it for this one. Like always, thanks for watching.